How has your understanding of self-expression evolved as you've navigated ADHD and anxiety?
It's it's been kind of an interesting journey, and like it's always changing. It's always sort of ebbing and flowing depending on what my focus kind of is. Because what I've learned with, at least with my ADHD, because everybody's is sort of different, is I'll kind of, if not fully hyper focus in, kind of just have like this super niche interest for a while and then move around. And with that, it's let me explore things like I know how to. I've been really enjoying like drawing with quills, like inkwells and quills, or slowly getting into digital artwork and things like that. But to make that step, I've learned I can't just draw straight on the tablet. I have to draw on paper and then digitize it. But then going in with that self expression, it's exploring all these different ways to express that creativity, whether it's painting miniatures, doing a drawing, and sort of anything like that.
Yeah, I feel that like when you explore all these different facets, it takes you onto these different kind of experiences, right? And when you, as a person with ADHD, you say you explore all these different routes, right? Why don't you just focus on one? Is something compelling you? Like, do you feel that you just lose the motivation?
It, for me at least, I kind of lose the motivation after a bit. It's like if I do one thing and I dedicate all my time to just that one thing, I feel like I'm missing out on other art forms, and that I need to do those things and leave this one to come back to. And that sometimes I just kind of start losing interest in doing the thing that I was so passionate about. Like for the longest time, I couldn't draw. I just couldn't bring myself to really draw anything. It's only been the last couple of years again that I've started picking it back up and really trying to just get back into it.
Well, it really depends on your goals too.
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to get out of it? Like, are you trying to be a pro, or are you just trying to experience catharsis? And
At one time, I did want to be a pro. Like I wanted to sell stickers, do
yeah,
tattoo designs. Yeah, like I said, it's kind of all over. Like I've done sticker designs. I've actually been commissioned to do tattoo designs for people before, and that worked out really well. People really loved that. But it's just kind of, I lost the focus with that. So now it's back to just being, I just want to draw for the sake of drawing. Because if I'm trying to do it for business, I find I lose that motivation. I feel like I'm not doing what I want to necessarily.
it becomes a chore,
Yeah.
right? When you have like a metric that you're trying to strive for, it becomes this just enormous task. Even though it's the same activity, it's just a framing around it.
Yeah.
And it's uh, there's this idea of framing, and you can have your high you can be breathing a bunch within a workout because you're exerting yourself so
Mhm.
much, but within traffic, if you have the same kind of feeling, it's like it's a heart attack and it's a cause of concern. And it's
Yeah.
all about how you frame certain narratives, right? If you're seated down there and there's just so much work, and then you're putting so much emphasis on being able to get this task done for this time versus just doing it for fun. Now,
Yeah.
which mode is useful for you? Which kind of framing? Right?
Yeah. It's putting it in the mindset of just like, no. I'm just doing this for the sake of doing this. That makes it like that's when it doesn't feel like a chore. That's when it becomes a no, I just want to do this sort of thing.
Yeah. But it's hard to live in the moment, man. Like, it's hard to actually just do things for fun, because ultimately we're always thinking of how this affects us in the future.
Yeah.
Like, I could be making money right now, or is this going to really amount to something? Like, what even is fulfillment, right? Is that useful? Can I pay for my groceries with that?
Can I utilize this? Yeah, will this help me financially?
Yeah. What does it say about my past? Like, is this actually net positive?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then you start down that whole spiral, and I know again like how my brain works is like I'll start thinking about that, and then I'll spiral down into, well, what's the point of this? Well, what's the point of anything? Well,
Yeah.
and just keep going and going and going until I
Yeah.
can. Usually, usually like actually my girlfriend's been really helpful in exploring more of this, but like she's also helped me just pull myself out of that. I mean, like, hey, you're spiraling, you're being ridiculous.
Yeah.
Bring yourself back up.
Yeah. What are some ways you have brought yourself back in?
Like just out of that spiraling mindset,
spiral,
or
yeah.
honestly, just taking a moment to realize that I'm not necessarily actually feeling these. I'm basically digging my own grave with it. Is that I'm digging myself deeper and deeper, and just taking a moment to kind of step back from the situation and just go, why am I here? How did I get to this point from this inconsequential thing? It's sort of taking that moment to just think about, okay, I've thought of all the bad things. Why am I not thinking about the good things with this?
Yeah.
Or like sort of, sometimes the wording's not always the best.
No,
but
I
it's
get
like,
it. I have made a list in my head of all the things that have gone bad in the recent days, in my childhood, in the future. Why this? Why me? And it actually feels kind of good to feel like that sometimes, right? Because it's like, I don't know, it just makes me feel human. I don't know. There's some underlying reason why we do it, and I think it's maybe evolutionary psychologists or say that back then it was useful to feel like that. So then we are safe. Like within our, if we sense a lion nearby, right? The negative is so much more salient versus the positive, which is okay. You can. That's why it's so much more work to have positive experiences, or at least to bring them to mind, the negative ones. And so our brains are always looking for negative ones. And we discussed it before starting the pod, where it's just really easy for us to name out negative things and to prioritize that, because throughout time, throughout our ancestors, that was the norm.
Yeah, it was kind of like that safety awareness of like, okay, these are all the bad things that can happen. I'm going to be aware of these. I'm going to focus on these. If anything starts happening here, it's a defense mechanism almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas more modern times, we're kind of at a point where it's like, there are so many things that go on that can affect that we can focus on. But in the end, it's kind of recognizing if they are actually consequential or not. Like, do you actually need to be defending against something that somebody said to you like 3 years ago, sort of thing?
Yeah. Like somebody made a comment on your speech or like the way you look. Does that really have any net positive as to how you're going to interact with other people in the future? Like, yes, you could argue that, okay, maybe you don't engage in that type of behavior next time. And in that sense, sure, maybe that is positive, but to the extent that people do it, it's really never positive, man.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it from like an objective view of, okay, this is what that person said to me, or this happened to me, this negative experience happened to me, and actually made a conclusion versus just ruminating on the thought over and over.
Yeah.
Right? And
because it's so easy to just get stuck on that thought. Because like as you said, it's just like, yeah, somebody commenting on a speech or something like that, or like I hate comment or something like that. Is it worth your time or effort to spiral on that? No. Is that necessarily going to stop you? No.
Yeah. Or like they looked at me funny, or like, how come all the 4 times we've interacted, it was all good, but then this 5th time we've interacted, maybe they feel less enthusiastic. Maybe
something's wrong with me. Oh no, what did I do?
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, definitely having an outlet such as self-expression and creativity is a big help with that.
Oh, big time. And it works for both the positive and the negative. Sometimes, and this is something I'm really working on, is trying not to bottle what you feel. Like if you just kind of go, I'm fine. It builds and it builds.
It's like shaking a Coke can, man. Eventually it's going to explode.
Yep.
Yeah. Or at least if it doesn't explode, maybe the tension inside just keeps on building and
It,
building.
it basically hits a point where it's like you flick the thing, it could go off.
Yeah.
And that's emotional, being like emotionally volatile.
Yeah. And what creative outlets have helped you the most in expressing yourself authentically?
Honestly, a big part of it is like my drawings and things like that. Like if I'm in a low place, I do sort of like very disturbing drawings and things like that, body horror, along those lines. But some of the best places I've done it is actually with my work at Fortnum Park, because I'm one of the sort of I work with the costumed interpreting team, and I get to basically just not necessarily be myself in the moment. I can bring out an aspect of myself to talk about this history. It's the same thing with Dungeons and Dragons too. It's why I kind of latched onto it so much, is that it's not your entirety. It's putting a part of you that you want to explore. It's expanding on certain parts of you that you might like and might not otherwise kind of express.
That's the beauty with stories and just the narratives and even costumes. And that's partly why I love Halloween so much, is for a brief moment, you're not you, and you could actually explore a different mindset, a different character, and you could dive into that character and look in the mirror, and for a split second you're the main character and you're
whatever
Men in
character
Black. You're and you get to embody that mindset. And within shows, you see their backstory, right? You see that they have overcome some sort of adversity, or even if they're just like humorous and they don't really care about what people say, or they're heroic, and you get to embody that. Hey, and you take little fragments of that.
Yeah. And just expanding on it. Or again, even like I know I have like two sort of main campaigns that I'm doing at the moment, and one character is sort of the wacky, I'm gonna be here smoking my pipe. I'm a druid that's high on mushrooms 90% of the time, but I still get things done.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one's like this whole bard character in a carnival at the moment. It just kind of exploring different ways with that.
Yeah. What draws you into these characters that you do choose? And you mentioned earlier too that you're drawn into kind of the scary, gory stuff.
I do enjoy it because my brain will go on those spirals. It will hit those dark points. So to be able to just kind of release that is just very cathartic.
Yeah.
Like I wish the job paid better, but I was what's known as one of the scare actors at Fort Park's Dark a couple of years ago. I was this giant pumpkin-headed scarecrow referred to as the Scare Lord, and I literally just got to scream at people about how I see my next scarecrow.
Yeah.
And just screaming things like that at people while I chase them around with giant claws.
Yeah.
It was just so cathartic to get some of those darker thoughts and just personify them into, I'm just going to be loud. I am just going to be scary. And I'm just going to let that go.
Yeah. I think some side of us wants to lash out, right? I think Carl Jung talks about how we all have the ingredients within us to be a criminal, to be the most loving person, to be rich, to be all these different things, modalities. And a lot of people look at a homeless person, a serial killer, just insert person that's marginalized and lashing out, and they think, oh, that could never be me. But I think if you really think about it, you are you, because everything that has happened leading up to now, because
you are not just a moment, you are some of all of these things culminating.
Because your mom was there for you. There's actually somebody providing food on the table. You actually got to go to a school. You actually have a job. What if you never had the nurturing aspect of a friend? What if you've never had any romantic relationships, no friends?
Yeah.
That's why we see movies like Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, at least the first one. The second one I heard was not so good.
I haven't seen either. I do really want to see it, but I've heard it's just such an beautiful sort of delve into the mind of.
Well, it's characters like those, right? Where we go, huh, like I don't I don't condone his actions, and certainly it would be terrible for society to have more people like him, but I could see myself in him sometimes. You know what I mean? Like I could see myself in that. Like we see the hero and we see the villain. Okay. And Donald Miller has this idea of like the hero takes pain from the world or gets some sort of tragedy happening to them, but they go, okay, the world hurt me. I won't let anybody experience this. But then the villain sees that and that experiences the same thing.
Yeah.
And goes, okay, the world hurt me. I'm going to hurt it back.
Yeah.
And we see, we want some part of us wants to be the villain. Like, oh, you wronged me. I want to wrong you and everyone. I want to blame everyone.
And the way that you're talking about it, because again, I've been learning more and more about ADHD because I've always been scared to kind of explore into it more and more. Yeah. But like some of that is like just kind of hopping on thoughts. And like while you're explaining that, I'm like, to me, it sounds like most people are in that anti-hero sort of range where they're trying to do good, but they can do it in the worst ways sometimes. Like it's that case of, no, the world hurt me. I don't want to hurt the world, but I'm going to hurt select things in this world to make it better. And it kind of feels like that's where a lot of people kind of tend to sit. And I know like my mentality, I lash out sometimes because I get in these spirals and I get in these places. I want to do good. I'm trying to do good, but I will lash out and I will hurt things around.
Yeah. And it's often the people we value the most that we hurt, right? Because we had a bad day. Maybe at work, some person made us feel unappreciated. Maybe we were downright just excluded from a group, and we could tell that this group does not like us. And maybe they actually just straight up punched us, right?
Yeah.
And when we want to do good, I think the essence of a human being is good, but the world definitely taints us and definitely makes us turn to a different mode of thinking in which we know deep inside we don't want, but it's just that going back to expression, if you don't have any ways of kind of putting it out and
a way to not necessarily, again, like not bottling that energy, but like diffusing it, putting it out in positive, productive ways, sort of thing.
Yeah. Like how do you fuel your workouts or like your creativity? You can fuel it with pain. You can fuel it with really all the emotions inside. Because I don't think anybody in this world actually experiences life in absolute bliss. Maybe some people just like suffer less and they just have, just a better quality of life. But I think that's required a lot of work, because even people that are rich, people that look like they have everything, it's still evident that they're not the happiest.
Yeah. Like sometimes the happiest people are hurting the most at times. Like I think of Robin Williams.
Yeah.
You think of like how much joy, how much happiness he put out in the world, but he was such a deeply scarred and troubled individual.
Yeah.
Like
just the things that were happening inside him.
Yeah.
Right. Like we can't even fathom. Or even Jim Carrey was on his kind of, like he's better now, but there was a point where he just saw negative in everything. It's negativity.
Yeah.
And I think there's like an interview with him, and he just, I think it was some award show, and he just went full nihilism and just talked about how pointless this all is, and that we're not in control.
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, and he's a guy with the quote of like, I wish everyone got everything they wanted in life to know that it's not the answer. And I always look back into that, where like all these people reach like the epitome of success, and a lot of billionaires say that money's not the answer, that fame's not the answer, but we never listen.
No, well, because everybody else is sitting there going like, I don't know, a good chunk of change could help me, buy a house, buy a car, afford life. That'd make me happy, but
it definitely solves problems, but I don't think in a long term it fully fulfills you.
That I think that's one of the best ways to put it is that, the money can help you in the moment, but it's not going to give you that sense of fulfillment. It might put you on the path towards it, but it's a matter of you exploring those paths and taking that chance to roll with it and make yourself feel fulfilled. Yeah.
No amount of money is going to make the internal milieu suddenly all okay. All right. I think there's this saying of if you can't be happy with a cup of coffee, you can't be happy with $1 million. And that's just like worst case. But
honestly, no, I like that because, again, my brain thought of the image of, at my home, I have an espresso machine and a Keurig machine. Mm-hmm. I haven't been able to get an espresso pods for the last little bit because I just haven't had a chance to run out and get them. But it's like, I can be happy with just a simple cup of Joe. I don't need anything fancy or anything. Just coffee, milk, some sugar. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. But then it's like, oh, but that person's coffee is a lot more expensive, and that
person's got like a whole latte. They got caramel drizzles and things going on. And like, I want that.
And they're smiling and they're outside all the time. Like I'm stuck with work. And this goes back to kind of the perceptions we have, right? And kind of the narrative, the milieu that we have in our heads. It's everything.
Yeah.
Do you find structure and routine to help or hinder your creative process?
Honestly, since the new year, I've been really trying to focus on like scheduling and planning and getting those routines and things like that. Like for the first time in years that I've been saying it, I've actually been able to get myself to go to the gym, either with my partner, with friends, or even more recently, even on my own, when before I could never really get that going. I've been keeping up for about 3 weeks now, going at least once or twice.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
And and it's been just a really good push. And keeping my routine is basically I put anytime even if I'm chatting, like you messaged me about the podcast, my immediate response was, okay, I'm putting this in my phone. I'm making sure I schedule this so I don't forget.
Yeah.
And it's been really, really helpful because I'm actually able to plan things with friends. I'm planning things weeks and months in advance now of, okay, I need to make sure I book time off from this job at this time, this job at this time, and I'm good. I need to make sure that, this job takes priority, get this shift covered. And then also, again, making plans with people is like, cool, we're doing a thing. When? Time and place, puts in my Google Calendar.
Do you find making plans with friends to be a chore?
Find scheduling the time and planning things a little bit more so. But like if I have that opening and I'm just chatting with somebody, but like, yeah, we should totally do this thing. Actually, reminds me, I need to sit down with a friend I've been meaning to draw with for ages. But like sit down and be like, okay, when am I free? When are they free? And go from there. That part's the biggest chore. Actually doing it is fun. It's awesome. It's really enjoyable. I went to karaoke the other night, like we mentioned, and we planned that out earlier in the week. I was more or less free that day. So it was like, okay, I'm going to put this in and we're going to do this. And that was that. And we figured out the details from there and just went.
Nice. Yeah. I find scheduling stuff with friends, it seems like in my head it's like a lot of work. Like, I gotta get ready for this, and then I gotta show up, and we're gonna go bowling, and I gotta send out some invites, and I gotta be there and plan out and then spend some money. But then once I'm actually there, it's like, wow, this is like such a blessing. Like this, a lot of people don't have a lot of friends, a lot of people, for the advancement in technology that we have with social media bringing us closer together, the easy access to connect, it's been really isolating still from like what the professionals say, that the advancements in social media, it does not replace real life connections. And that's really what I've realized. I've really just stop texting as much. And then if I do text, it's to get to making a plan or just to
Yeah.
check in when I'm texting, not just like fluff, like actually stuff that I can
You can be like, okay,
connect with.
I want to chat with you. Let's set a time and a place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've found it can be connecting,
mhm.
but it can be so distancing at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it helps me connect with one buddy of mine, one of the guys I went to karaoke with, because he works. Oh my God, I keep messing up where he works, but it's a good couple hours outside of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So he's only in town every so often. I'll mostly just communicate with him by talking about anime or manga, and sending him memes on Instagram. But when we're in the city, it's like when he comes in, he goes bouldering like almost every day he's in. And so it's like, cool, you're in town. I'll join you.
Yeah, that's dope. And it's the utmost it's the effort that is required for a friendship to flourish. Because without actively checking in, without showing up, it just atrophies like a muscle, you know?
Yeah. In most cases, in some cases, and this is person by person. Again, this exact friend, we actually met up so that we could go. We met up. I met up with him and another buddy of mine, and both me and this one friend were the groomsman and best man for this one buddy's wedding, and we were going suit shopping. I hadn't seen him in 5 years, and we picked up a conversation like we saw each other 2 days ago, like as if nothing changed. Like he looked at me, was like, "Oh, Dodo, you've lost a lot of weight. When did that happen?" I was like, "Okay, last time you saw me was pre-pandemic."
Yeah.
I was like,
that's awesome.
And neither of us realized it until after we like quantified it. It was like, yeah, why do I look so different to you? Oh, but it just, some people just clicks like that. In other cases, yeah, you grow further and further apart.
Mm-hmm. And what I always think about when I do remember a friend that I just never talk to anymore, and like even if I wanted to connect with them, it's just that we're in like different points in our lives that it's just not.
It doesn't seem feasible to reach out and connect. It doesn't
feasible, and like we're just entirely different people, and I don't see that as like a waste of time, because within that point in my life, they were there and I was there for them, and maybe we had a falling out, maybe we didn't, and it's like you learn from them. You take an essence of who they were, and they're probably just an entirely different person now, and if you do click again, then that's awesome. But if not, you're still thankful for the things that did happen.
Yeah, it's again, it's kind of that not holding on to things that happened in the past, good or bad. It's growing, using them and growing with it.
Yeah. What role does storytelling, whether through history or theater, play in personal empowerment?
Honestly, at least from my experiences, it is so freeing to either sort of embody a story that you were talking about and sort of, again, play up certain aspects of it, and to help add to the creativity in what you're doing. If you can just tell a story, but it's finding ways to make it enticing to people and bring people into it, almost like a conversation, that really makes it flourish. And to me, that is an art form in and of itself, is finding ways to do that sort of thing.
I love stories that just make me go, wow, like I'm not alone. Or I never thought about life in that way. And then bringing other people together to be able to talk about that story and branching out and seeing how they could relate in their lives, and how maybe it said something about friendship in there that you could leverage within your life.
Yeah. and like it's taking some of those aspects. But one thing that I've learned, and one thing that we've been slowly trying to actually incorporate in with some of the work and things, because funny enough, it plays in with customer service and things, is that everybody will have a different perspective. I remember seeing a video of Neil deGrasse Tyson talking, where he was talking to a judge, and he was like, not comfortable being on this jury. You have a single witness. And the judge basically tries to repeat back what Neil deGrasse Tyson said. So you're telling me you're not comfortable because this is the only thing here, the only person that witnessed this. And he was like, no, like it's because a single perspective doesn't give the true story. And the judge tried to repeat back what he'd said. And another guy next to Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, that's not what he just said, though. So it's that case of no matter what thing happens, there are so many different perspectives on exactly what happened and why.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the storytelling history aspect, and that I've been really delving into.
Yeah. Like one thing can happen, but within the angles that it happened from and the things that you hear, because maybe it's your attention is placed on the sound, or maybe your attention is placed more on the visual. Maybe you completely just phased out because you were reminded of something in the past and you blanked out.
Yeah.
And it's crazy just how much perception has a play and all these different stories, and even like things that happen at work, at school, right? A lot of people have their own stories they may talk about the same thing, but the way they talk about the things that they focus on are entirely different in the way they absorb certain information.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of like if you watch a movie with a couple of friends and you go, okay, so what are your honest thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Like I know I went to go see the Beetlejuice, the second movie, with a buddy for his birthday with a bunch of people. He loved it. He thought it was so much fun. He thought it was such a good continuation. Yeah, it had a few too many plot lines, but it was still a good movie. And I'm sitting here going like, I loved that it felt like a continuation of the original. It felt like they crammed several episodes of the cartoon into a movie and tried to make it work.
Oh, jeez.
I love my chaos. I love chaotic things.
Yeah.
This was too much for me.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you talking about? This was awesome. And I'm going like, yeah.
I watched The Substance because my buddy recommended it.
Yeah.
And I had high praise in the movie. I thought it was really well done, and I really related to it. And there's a lot of fragments within it that I'm like, whoa, this says so much about society and life. And I just thought it resonated with me, like the sounds and the dialogue. And then I ran into my buddy at the gym, and I told him about this movie. I recommended it to him, and he's like, oh, I saw that with this chick and I thought it was complete shit. And I'm like,
yeah,
what don't you see? Like, it was so good, man. What are you talking about?
Because everybody's going to relate to a different story differently.
Yeah.
Like you said, you related, like you found things that you're like, this is so compelling. This is making me think. This is reminding me of things. For him, he's sitting there like, the hell am I watching?
Yeah. And it's great. It's an actual skill to understand that other people have their own narratives. Because what used to happen with me is whenever somebody had opposing opinions, or even when somebody had an opposing opinion, I tried to people please. Like, I wouldn't say my true opinion, or when I laid out my opinion first and somebody opposed it, I'd be kind of salty. I'd be like, what? Why don't you like about this? Like,
why aren't you getting it? Why aren't you getting the vision?
Yeah. But it's like, okay, it's like an entirely different person.
Yeah.
Are there any historical figures or stories that have particularly inspired you in your journey?
Yes and no. Like there's a lot of historical figures that I look at of aspects of, and I'm like, I can relate to this. I totally get this. But then there's a lot to them as well, because everybody has so much going into them that you also can't just necessarily idolize a single individual. It's very hard to do that. But if I had to pick someone, it's actually an individual I got to kind of portray during when I was working as just an interpreter before I became a supervisor in the 1846 fur trading fort. And his name was Paul Kane. He was an Irish artist. His family moved over very, very early on. I think he was born like 1810. And between, I think it was 1843 and 1848, he ended up going across Canada and documenting interactions with Indigenous nations and tribes all throughout what was Rupert's Land, what is now Canada. through a lot of his paintings. If you've ever opened a social textbook on the fur trade, you've probably seen some of his paintings.
Yeah, all throughout elementary and middle school. That's all we learned about in high school, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Like but with him, what I loved about him so much was he wasn't like a lot of the people that were going across the nation. One thing from what I've learned is that he, pardon this, but he didn't whore his way across like a lot of fur traders did. Like he wasn't just sleeping with people. Mm-hmm. And the other big one is that he was self-taught. He didn't get a formal education in art. He went on a self-funded tour of Europe, took what he liked from the masters, and then just taught himself. He just expressed what he was seeing. A lot of his paintings now are considered sort of portrayals of like the noble savage sort of thing, like not accurate depictions, but they're some of the best depictions at the time. And he wasn't doing it from a place of malice. Yes, he was funded by the Hudson's Bay Company to do a lot of these paintings and drawings. But before he'd even set out on his missions, I believe he was in York, which is now Toronto, if I remember correct. I might be getting some of these mixed up. He actually would go out and just kind of hang out with some of the nearby nations that were present and sort of just be friendly with them. He wasn't somebody who was being racist with it. He was just depicting as he saw it from his perspectives.
And did he have a crew with him when he was traveling?
He did have a team of sort of just like companions just to help make sure like he got around safely, because this was before we had, highways and things like that. During the 1800s and things. Yeah, places like Toronto, Ottawa, like far east, that's developed. Out here, 1846, Fort Edmonton is the only permanent structure for miles.
So you'd have to have, of course, for it to succeed, because for the Hudson's Bay Company to be able to keep funding your journey, you need to provide good artwork, which he seemed like he was doing the job. He
was quite popular for a bit.
And you also need to have the survival skills and have the communication skills, because there must have been like a massive language barrier, because with all the different indigenous peoples, like there's a Cree and there's like way more than that.
So like taking Fort Edmonton as an example, one of the things that we like to highlight is English probably wasn't the most prevalent language there. It would have been Gaelic, like Irish or Scottish, depending. Michif, which is the Métis language, French, Orkney. Like there are so many different languages that would have been spoken most of the time, and like that's just the more European-esque languages. You would even have some of these forts would actually have like paid interpreters that could speak multiple different of the indigenous languages, Blackfoot, Cree, everything like that, to help facilitate these deals. And Paul Kane did have people with him that could do that.
Yeah, it's definitely heroic what he's done.
It's fascinating because in a lot of ways his art is very good. In a lot of ways it can be seen as very controversial, at least from a modern day's perspective.
Yeah, and it seems that throughout all this time that he's been there, I'm sure if he treated people like shit, then I'm sure there would have been somebody out to get him. Because I don't think his crew was that. I'm sure they trained in battle, but
not so much. More like just to keep wild animals away, like people who knew how to use the trails and things. Because even there's another person actually in the fort that I look at and is like, I like what you did at this time. Yeah. His name was John Rowand. He was in charge of not just Fort Edmonton, but the whole Saskatchewan district. So like 13, 14 forts spanning from the mountains to middle of Saskatchewan. And he would spend most of his days traveling between them all. It was kind of like, the best way I've been able to equate it for people is you have all your teachers. Those are the factors. They're in charge of individual forts. He's the principal.
Oh, wow.
So he would be checking in on all these places. And unlike his boss, John Simpson, who I'll leave it as he was your stereotypical historical racist POS.
Hmm. Which is like the average
Yeah,
European
which is
kind of.
really unfortunate. That is a lot of the average thing. But
Yeah.
Rowan, he actually used to work for a previous company because they used God, the Northwest Trading Company. He did such a good job there. John Simpson looked at this man and said, I want you working for me. I want you with this company when they basically bought out and absolved the Northwest Trading Company.
Mm.
That's when he got hired into the Hudson's Bay. But he was one of the people who, like, he turned a failing fort because we were on our like third or fourth Fort Edmonton when he came in charge because there were 5 total. And he turned what was basically a failing fort, a failing place of business, into the central hub for commerce. And he would respect people when they came in. One of his nicknames, if I remember correct, is like the ghost of the prairies or something like that. Because he basically went to a meeting of chiefs and was told, you can't go in there. They're having a meeting. Please, I really need to chat with them. I need to chat with them about business, and I need to make sure that like they understand what's going on with the deals, and I want to make sure that we get this sorted out. He was there for days trying to get in this meeting to chat with these like individuals at the time of, okay, I want to make sure you're getting it like a good deal here, and I want to make sure that you feel respected. Is more or less how I've come to learn that story. Again, everybody's going to have different tales with it, but he was one of the more interesting ones. Like his wife, he was her second husband,
Mm.
but they ended up loving each other in like so much that when she ended up passing, and he was on a business trip going towards the Rocky Mountains, he turned his horse around and came back home and buried her himself. Because the way that they'd met was he'd gone horseback riding on an unbroken horse. So when he fired his musket, he got bucked into a tree and shattered his leg. And she found him. And they ended up having like 6 or 7 different kids.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's crazy how different times were back then, hey, with the horses and kind of the no road services all around, and
Yeah.
these people have had to travel such a long way, such an arduous just battle.
Oh yeah. Like even just doing business, the fastest way to do business was you'd leave Fort Edmonton, hit a couple other forts along the river as you went. Sometimes you'd have to portage, so get your boat and the few thousand pounds of furs and other cargo out of the water, go across some land, back in the water, and keep going all the way to the mouth of the Hudson's Bay or Yorktown or York Factory. And to go there and back pretty much as quick as you could, 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
And that was the fastest.
Yeah. And we are complaining about the bus ride or just that Prime Amazon being a day late.
Man, I ordered this like 20 minutes ago. Why isn't it here yet?
Yeah. Well, no, I ordered Skip just like 3 hours ago. Where is it now?
Yeah, it's like what?
Yeah. How has your experience in theater influenced the way you understand and communicate emotions?
That one's kind of interesting because again, I'm always learning more, and I normally do more of the production side. So I'm not usually on the stage. I'm not usually the one performing because I used to suffer from stage fright to the point that I couldn't even talk in front of like 15, 20 people. Doing something like this would have given me an anxiety attack.
Oh wow, you've come a long way.
That's just kind of, and that's what I've learned from theater is sometimes you just have to get out there and be prepared to fail. Just don't worry about that. You can learn from mistakes, but just get out there and do it. Other things that I've learned from it really is you see an actor on the stage and they are over the top with their motions. They are, what are you talking about? Like over the top, exaggerated motions, everything like that. But when you dial it down, when you were talking to somebody, you can kind of see these different indicators of, am I what I'm talking about making you uncomfortable? Like little things like that, or like, are you distracted? Something's on your mind, and you can kind of read it on people, just in where they're looking, what's going on with their hands, their movements, even how they hold themselves.
Yeah, just the little things, especially if you're not the one presenting, you get to see just the little things that they do with their fingers and the gesture and how their spine is just shaped in the angle that they move their body. Yeah, it's amazing to see it where within movies where it can be edited,
Yeah.
and there's like many takes. Like theater is definitely the one where you cannot screw up.
Yeah. Because if you screw it up, the audience might not know. The director will, but and the text will probably giggle in the background. But
Yeah.
it's that case of, again, it's like you're taking the things that you're seeing on the stage, because you're not just on stage, you're not just doing it for the people directly in front of you. You're not it's not like us right now. They are trying to express things where people can't even see their faces, so that people 30 rows back can see what's going on and understand the emotions on the stage. Like if somebody is going like this, you can tell, oh, someone's getting scolded.
Yeah. And within your cast members too, if you miss a line, it's got this butterfly effect where then they are less likely to remember their line because you didn't give them the cue, and maybe that was useful for them. And so your team member is now with like a domino effect, and you're the one to blame. So there's a lot of high tensions too. So you constantly need to prepare and master every single element within the process. And do you find that be like watching these people in plays has helped you with your stage fright, like seeing them flourish? Or have you seen that, oh, like, whoa, they're so good, like how could I ever get to that level?
Both. A bit of both. Because for me, sure, I'd love to be on the stage. I like, as the old song says, who doesn't want, like, it more or less, I literally listened to it on my way over actually. Limelight, it's like, who does, like, it's the universal dream. Who doesn't want to be in that limelight? Like, who doesn't want to be on the stage, spotlight, attention? Yeah, there's a lot of people who don't. Hi, one of those for the longest times. But a part of me was still always like, I do kind of want that attention. I do kind of want to be able to have that presence. But the bigger part of me looks at it as just, it's a really fascinating way to explore stories, explore different emotions, and just different mindsets as well. All right.
How has what mindset shifts have been most crucial for you in learning how to invest in yourself?
So that one, genuinely, like, it's still a struggle. Like, recently I've been really just kind of spiraling downwards more and more. Actually just this comes with the investing in myself a little bit later on, but I finally went out and saw a counselor about ADHD and how it affects me and what can contribute to it and things. But it was actually my partner who encouraged me to go, because we got into a fight and saying I've been wanting to do this for ages. And so I was like, okay, no, I'm going to finally invest in myself and go and do this. Cause it's like, God, $150 for 50 minutes. That's a lot. But it's been a lot of that sort of mind change of, it is, but it's worth the money. Because that's been my biggest struggle in changing my mindset was, oh, this is too expensive. Oh, this is too much. I can't reasonably spend this much money when I need to get food, pay bills, grow, like anything like that. But it's been,
there you go.
Yeah. But it's been very slow to build to that point of, no, I am worth this money going into myself. It's not a waste. Because again, one of my problems with the spirals and things like that is I'm very self-deprecative and can get in that mindset and just stick there. And so it's been this slow journey of realizing, no, I'm not as bad as what my brain keeps telling me, and I am worth this money going into this. If I can, it's also been a case of, I can spend money on, like, in absurd amounts of money on magic cards. I can absolutely refocus that money into things for my health, for my mental health. Like I put about $130 into getting a whole like new shorts that fit me since it was the first time I got gym shorts and like gym clothes since early high school.
Oh
So
wow.
several years. It was my first time of really going, no, I need to get these. I need to get runners specifically for the gym. I need to get shorts and a shirt just for the gym because it's an investment in me going there. It's the same thing with reasoning the cost of going to the gym. I have a side advantage because with my work, I got a discount on a membership to the rec centers. But it's also that case of even before I got that, I was going, no, it is worth the money I'm putting in now to take care of my health so that I can be around later.
Well, it's that delayed gratification, right? Where
That's one of the big ones.
fulfillment usually lies in, where scrolling past TikTok and just laying there and
Next thing you know, 3 hours has gone past and you're like, what the hell happened?
yeah, where like it feels good in the moment and drinking your life away and just
Or I don't want,
prioritizing
yeah,
shitty food, junk food within your body, drinking sugar 24/7, drugs, right? But the cost is paid later on. But with working out, with actually investing time in your relationships, by showing up, it's usually the very difficult tasks that you just have to pay up front that are painful,
yeah,
which is later on
it
a lot
pays
more
for itself some
fulfilling.
more.
Yeah. And you gain more. And there's these stocks that you invest in, which are just penny stocks and don't have a lot of value to them. Or even with Bitcoin, if you speculate, right? And if you just add money without really, taking the time to look at the balance sheets and take some time to actually get to know the company itself, I think I equate that to kind of the short-term hits
Yeah.
of vaping, of just scrolling through social media. And it may not seem that detrimental, but later on you will realize just how much time you've wasted, and
Yeah.
it usually amounts to regret.
Yeah. In all seriousness, like where I was living before, I hit a point over COVID, and it wasn't until more recently when I moved out with my partner, and we moved in together that I was smoking so much weed. Like I could literally sit there between the hours of 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. Smoke about 4 or 5 bowls from a bong.
Oh, wow.
Like I could go through an ounce, like a full ounce bag, in less than a month on my own. It was bad. I was spending so much money on that, but it was basically me rationalizing, no, I just need to disconnect. I just need to relax. But then I would just sit there and do nothing. I wasn't taking care of my health. I wasn't drawing. I wasn't doing anything creative. I just kind of sat there, zonked out of my brains.
Yeah. And you have this narrative, right, where okay, I've gone to work, I've done this difficult
I've
tasks,
been productive. I can do this.
I can do this. And it's like, is this actually making my life better? Like there's different ways of relaxing, right?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of friends that rationalize it that way too. And I was that way for not as much of like for 4 hours every night, but it was affecting my sleep within like I do it once a week, and my entire day the next day would be wasted.
Yep.
Because I don't feel fulfilled. I feel like a sack of shit. And I think there's just better ways, which I'm trying to emphasize onto my little brother. He's 6, of you can be a consumer or a producer, right? Usually if all you do is consume, usually it amalgamates to something catastrophic. But if you produce, if you draw, if you write, if you give out to the world, if you're the one creating the content, usually you feel better. And that's just, it seems like true for a lot of the things I've experienced, at least.
Yeah, no. And honestly, I agree with that. Cause again, it's like you're scrolling through media and things like that. You're getting those quick hits of dopamine. You're like, oh man, this is making me feel good. This is making me feel good. I'm loving this. But then you can feel that crash if you're not doing that. And it's trying to break, it's an addiction. Like that's really what that is you are getting a high of, oh, I'm feeling good doing this. Oh, I'm getting rewarded in instances, like in an instant. But it's taking that time to pull it back. Like I mentioned, I recently saw like a counselor for ADHD. One of the things she's actually getting me to do, I'm failed on it this morning. I will be honest. I failed on it this morning.
That's all right.
But she was like, in the morning, don't get on your phone. Don't scroll things on your phone. Don't read, like just step away from your phone. Just get up and walk. Because she highlighted for people with ADHD and other like mental cognitive, like neuroatypical sorts. But especially with ADHD is that I can't remember if she worded it as you have less dopamine or that you burn through it faster, but you can get those highs reading on your phone, but then you'll feel low for the rest of the day. You will be in this low space because you burned through your dopamine.
Mm-hmm. Anna Lemke wrote this phenomenal book. It's called Dopamine Nation. Actually, I have it right here.
Ooh.
I love it, man. It's one of my favorite books, and it's finding balance in the age of indulgence.
Oh, wow.
Because as you said, scrolling through your phone first thing in the morning, you're taking the finite resource of dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter for motivation and reward, and you're cashing it in all the way first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And in this day of just easy access to fast food, Prime, and skip the dishes, DoorDash.
I've definitely had issues with that. And it's like, I can just get this.
And then you could compound everything while eating shitty food. You could smoke, you could drink, you could watch YouTube. You could just do everything from your fingertips. And what she's had many case studies within this book of people getting addicted to everything and anything, like skydiving, and weed's been really prevalent, like alcohol and just masturbation, pornography,
gambling,
and a lot of people do a lot of these, all the above too. And it's just taking a step back and stop consuming, and that's where you can build up the dopamine to actually do something fulfilling. Because within these the dopamine depletion comes the bad thoughts, and maybe you already do have bad thoughts even without expending so much dopamine, but it's compounded if you feel just depleted all the time and having no drive to be able to create something. It's
like you can still have the happy thoughts, but it's going to be kind of like you're running on an empty tank. You can still move it, putting in neutral, but you're not getting anywhere, really. At least that's what I'm trying to like. That's kind of what my brain is somewhat visual. It's like you just can't. Yes, they're there, but it's not going to do what you need it and what you want it to do unless you take that time.
One thing that I've been doing a lot more is reflecting on which points in my life do I feel the most miserable, and which points do I feel the happiest. And I can just pinpoint to what caused this. And I've realized that the times where I feel fully depleted are the times where I'm staying up late, I'm scrolling through social media, I'm thinking about how much fun people are having because I'm on social media.
Yeah, you see those media posters like, God, I want to go to Italy. I want to go to France. I can't afford that. Why can you?
Exactly. And I'm staying up till 2 a.m. I can't sleep because all the blue light shining in my eyes. And then the next day, I wonder why I feel fatigued. I feel negative, and I don't feel fulfilled, and I don't feel I don't have the motivation. If I just like, it's so simple, but it's like have you ever heard of Occam's razor?
Yeah.
where it's like usually it's not the worst thing that you could think of. It's usually the simple kind of explanation, because we always amount what we feel and do to some underlying trauma, to like this thing that, you know, we have to just grit our teeth and have to, it's going to take years to solve, when really maybe it may take years to solve, but it's in the little things. It's like, okay, do you go on your phone an hour before bed? Yes, maybe stop doing that. Or maybe do you scroll on social media mindlessly for 30 minutes every day? Stop doing that. And I've noticed that by just getting rid of the things, the triggers, you know, slowly my life gets better.
Yeah. But it's again getting in that mindset. Even if it's just taking those baby steps of, okay, I'm not going to scroll my phone for like 2 hours. I'm going to scroll it for an hour today.
Yeah.
But like sort of setting that routine, setting those guidelines of, okay, I'm going to set specific parameters for doing this.
Yeah. And I'm a big advocate for celebrating the small wins as well.
Oh yeah.
Like, because majority of life is all about the progress.
Yeah.
Rarely is it about the reward, because that's only 1% of it. How when people run a race, it's usually the training, the arduous training for days on end.
Days,
and then,
weeks, months,
yeah,
years.
And if you win, and there's only one person that could win, depending on what race it is, it's like a 30-minute, you know, you get your reward, little speech, and then you go home.
Yeah. But and yeah, like that's a huge payoff. That's awesome for that person. But what about all the other people who didn't make that? And I know personally, like one of the mindsets I've been trying to really adopt is I'm just trying to be better than I was the day before. If I can run it, like, again, like I'll use the gym as an example. I wouldn't be able to run like 3 laps around the facility without getting winded and wanting to puke. I'm slowly building to a point of, okay, I can do 2.5 laps. I can do 2 3/4 laps of just straight running with this. I'm getting there, but it's going, okay, I'm seeing this improvement. I'm taking these baby steps and just trying to push it further and further and further.
Like it may not seem like a lot in the day to day, but if you zoom out and see what you were capable of even a year ago, it's like, whoa, I've accumulated all this. But a lot of people don't celebrate it because, they think it's not good enough, or it's not. When is it going to be good enough then?
Yeah.
You know, is it going to be good enough 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
Yeah. And it's again, it's even just taking those baby steps to change that mindset that can be such a struggle. Like, yeah, it's very hard to not focus on well, I can't do this now. Well, I'm not able to do this. How will I ever be able to do this? And it's, again, sort of being like, okay, what was I able to do before? Am I better than I was, or am I worse? Either way, you're taking a step forwards or backwards and recognizing, okay, where do I need to go from here?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the constant motion, right?
Yeah.
Because in action, that's stifling. That's where you get nothing done. You get worse off because you're probably just not exercising. You're not getting anything done. You're just consuming, and nothing good comes out of it. As long as you do something, right? It's that recognition in the act that you're trying, and it's giving yourself some grace, not being so harsh. Because a lot of what I've learned within myself is the negative comments do not help, but it's so easy, and it's so like ingrained.
Like, yeah.
You know, you make a mistake, oh, you're a failure. Oh, like, no, this person rejected you. Oh, nobody will ever love you. Or you get injured, and it's like, oh, how can you ever go back to life normally now?
Yeah, like you were nothing but a failure.
Yeah.
You fucked up, Len.
Yeah. It's like, who's this really helping? Like, whose team are you on? Like, your mind.
Yeah.
Is your mind on your side? And a lot of the time it's not. And you have to recognize that, and you have to have little safety nets to deploy to be able to prevent falling on your face first.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, there is a big struggle in looking for those supports, because they can be both internally but externally too. It's like, No, talk to your friends, talk to your loved ones.
Mhm.
But it's so hard to not think, no, I'm just going to burden them with this.
Yeah. Because I always think, what if they thought that way? You know, like, is this okay? Maybe you are right that it may be burdening them, but let's just say you put it as a universal law. Is this helpful for people? No, like we would just, it would be destructive. It would, at a large scale, it would be a catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why are you any different? You know, and that's kind of where I get solace from,
Okay.
like the not being special mindset of, oh yes, I'm not special, and that's great. You know, that means everybody suffers the way I do. My own suffering, my own kind of soup of negativity that I'm swimming in, the uh, negative self-talk and the insecurities
Yeah.
and the self-doubt, the guilt, the shame. It's everybody's feeling it too, because like a lot of people will view that as, go, oh, I'll never amount to something, like I'm not special. Like, no, that's great that you're not special, because you're not alone. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Everybody is special in that we're not special, sort of thing. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no.
Mhm.
It's normal to feel this way. It's
Yeah.
again, it's kind of like how I mentioned, like, yeah, you look at historical events, everybody's going to have a different perspective on it. This is your perspective that you're a piece of shit,
Yeah.
that you can't amount to anything. But then
Yeah.
it's recognizing, oh, they see me differently and they probably see themselves similarly. Maybe some people see themselves as the hottest shit in the room. Good for them. But then it's also, and like they can look down on you, but but again, everybody has those different perspectives. You might mess up on something. Somebody's going to go, I think that was awesome. I like the way that you did this. And you're sitting there going, but here you are ruminating in, oh God, I fucked up. Oh God, I did everything wrong. So it's again, those different perspectives and sort of twisting your own narrative on it. It's, if you're going to tell a story, you're going to want to tell a good story. So it's changing your perspectives and how you think about it and talk about it.
Yeah. And it's a constant effort, right? Because you're never going to wake up one day and all the problems are going to be fixed, and every self-doubt of shame, it's never going to go away. But you can just keep on trying. And I think that's what I've realized is the points where I've been the happiest, and saddest, my highest highs and lowest lows, I always think to myself of, oh, like this is just never gonna change. I'm never gonna feel normal again, because this is the best day of my life. How could it change? Or this is the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
How could it change? And then a week passes by, and maybe nothing's changed. But then a month passes, and you just forget about it, and it just goes back to baseline. And you look back and you go,
why did
I think about that? And there's this quote of, like, all your worries are a waste of time. You know, like,
I like that. Honestly,
like,
I like that. It's like, yeah, why?
Think of your worries a year ago. Like, did they actually happen? And if they did happen, you got over it. You know, and
move forward.
And there's somebody in the world where it's 10 times worse, and they probably got over it.
Yeah.
You know,
it's about, it's not like how you live life. It's how you think about how you live your life, sort of thing. It's like,
yeah,
no, I'm going to, quality over quantity. Sure. But quality can mean different things to different people. Like some people, quality is just, I have my siblings, I have my parents, and I have food. For others, it's, I have a comfortable, well-paying job. And it's going to be different for every single person.
That's why you constantly have to reflect and optimize and change, because we are constantly changing.
Oh yeah.
Like a year from now, you're just not going to recognize yourself, you know, for better or for worse. And that's up to you.
Yeah.
That's up to you whether you want to make that change or not. And either you can succumb to life's adversity, to which it always comes, and some days are worse than others.
Oh yeah.
It's it's how you make of it. But that's what makes it beautiful, though, right? The because without the sadness, there wouldn't be happiness. Without the evil, there wouldn't be good.
Yeah, you can't have light without dark. You can't have dark without light. You need the positives and the negatives to live life.
Yeah. How do you balance external expectations with your own needs for personal growth?
Oh God, oh boy, that one is. That is genuinely probably the biggest struggle, because so much of my mindset for so much of my life has always been, oh, I can't do this. It'll look bad for my parents or for my friends. Oh, I can't do this because it'll make me look like an idiot, and I already feel like an idiot. But it's kind of just taking time to think. And again, this is I think I'm currently struggling with slowly. It's those baby steps. I'm taking those baby steps to change it. I'm recognizing, no, most of the time, these external things don't matter. And just to step away from it and go, the only thing that really matters here is how I let it affect me. Not even necessarily how I perceive it, but how I let it affect me. And I know personally, I let a lot of those external things affect me way more than I should. But I'm slowly finding ways to be like, no, you know what? I don't need to focus on this. I don't need to think about this. I don't need to put that energy into this.
Yeah. It's why does it matter why that person thinks less of you? If they do that, then they're probably not your friend. If they're judging you for being who you are as a result of just what you want to do.
Yeah.
If you're following the truth for you and some people are taking a piss out of it, it's probably a problem with them than it is about you. And it's still like, I know that. See, I've repeated that to myself over and over, but it's still so tough because you want to be seen as this person who's successful. And when you do see the person in high school that you haven't talked to in a while, you want them to be impressed, but it's fleeting. And it's like why does that matter?
Yeah.
You know, why does that really matter?
Well, in all seriousness, you're talking about this. I started chuckling because I just remembered a thing that happened out at work a while ago. This was so bad.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine and me were, again, we worked at Fort Edmonton. We're in the fort. This is mostly just from like that time, that period, just in the last handful of years. But me and him were hanging out. We're dressed in 1846 suits and things like that because yes, we're in the big house. We're in the house of like it was John Rowan's big house. It was the central hub of his family, and like that would be the best way I could equate it is like, oh, this is like the premier's residence. This is where the premier lives essentially, and I am in here. And we're just hanging out at the table, and a group comes in, and it's a family, appear to have like African descent, and we talked to them. They asked a couple questions, and then they went around the house. Again, so for context, Fort Edmonton, never used for military purposes, never used for war, never used for. It was a place for business. It was commerce. That was it. These two girls from the group, they we talked to this family already. They come back, they look at us, they whisper at each other, and then all we hear, me and this other very white man, run away before they make us slaves again. And they book it out of the house.
Really?
And, yeah. And me and him just had to sit there and be like, what?
Yeah.
And so we both took this moment, and it was so funny because we both went, we can either take this as an insult, but we both we just burst out laughing, going like what the fuck? Yeah, what the fuck just happened there? Like,
oh jeez.
It's kind of like taking moments like that. Like I could have ruminated on that. I could have sat there and just thought, man, they're being like discriminatory to me just because I'm a white guy and like all these things.
They're assuming stuff, or you could just be like they're just like joking. They're taking joking. It's lighthearted.
And maybe their family had a history with that. Like another story, kind of talking on those perspectives, actually told by one of our indigenous narrative sort of supervisors. was actually of a man who came in, and he actively was like, yeah, no, my I think it was his granddad or dad, and he was like, yeah, he actually he loved the residential schools, and it was like, you, like a man of Métis Indigenous descent, you're telling us he loved being in the residential schools. And so the supervisor asked him, like, I just want to check, like, what was his story? Because for most people, awful time, awful thing to happen in history. It is like so messed up when you look into it. But this man, he told the story about how, again, I can't remember if it was his dad or his grandparent, went from living on the streets, fighting to even just get like moldy bread, to a place where he was warm, he was clothed, and he got 3 square meals a day. For him, it was such a good thing. But the way that he was talking about it, you can either take that as something's wrong here, or maybe there's a story behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always thought about the different sides of like war, because within a place where, okay, you're surrounded by your own peers and it's all great and you guys are suffering because, oh, it's the enemy. What about them? Right? What's happening to them? And you see different films within, like, It's All Quiet in the Western Front.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix, and it just shows kind of the torments that's even some of the Germans went, because we think of, oh, Nazis, and we just think that, oh, they're the bad guys, but there's a lot of bad things still that happen on that side.
Oh, yeah.
And then go into even like slavery, where, okay, yes, it's bad, but I think maybe there were probably owners out there that actually treated their slaves like people who are actually nice, who actually had a great experience, that when the slavery ended, the slaves were saddened because they had a great fulfilling relationship with their master.
It was so give and take. And you even look at it historically, a lot of places had always been had a history of slavery even before it became like commercialized, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting to kind of look at that and be like, okay, there's always more to it.
And you could just assume stuff. Like if somebody was told that residentials was good for them, I'm sure he's probably been shut down many times saying, oh, it's just all bad. Like, no, there is
like people flip it and go like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Like, you don't understand. This is their perception, and maybe they're being delusional, but they're maybe it's rooted in the truth. Give them some time to actually assess kind of who they are.
Yeah. Or
right?
Again, like we had one guy come, I remember interacting with this guy in particular, was he came through and he was saying things like, and I apologize if this is offensive to people, but he was like referring to the indigenous peoples as Indians. And like just very flippantly, like he literally came into the fur trade shop and was like, yeah, so is this where the Indians did business? And he just used it so nonchalantly. And I was like, hold on, sir, what question for you? Do you happen to be from the States? Like, are you from America? And he was like, yeah, I'm from California. And I was like, okay. So we don't use that terminology here because it's disrespectful and just kind of takes away onus from who they are as a people. And I just kind of explained, like, we use indigenous, and he was very receptive to it. Like sometimes people will say things not because they're being disrespectful, but because they don't know differently. I look back on one interaction I had with an old guy who like whispered to me, like looked around and whispered to me, like, is this where you buy the guns to like fight the Indians? And my immediate reaction was, sir, I am not having this conversation. And I turn around and I look back on it and I go, he might have just been embarrassed to ask because he doesn't know the terminology. He didn't know the exact history that happened there.
Yeah. And if you give people some time and assume they are innocent before guilty, you'll come to realize, that, okay, you give them some time and maybe it's not that bad and they're just being ignorant, right? Yep. They're just not maybe they're not educated on that stuff.
Yeah. Because and again, this is another thing I've learned going back a couple things that you asked me there, but kind of it's how things are said you don't always necessarily need the context, but it can be how something is said. Like, honestly, my best example is the F word. Like, there are so many different ways you can say fuck between
Yeah.
fuck or
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's how you say it. And sorry, I kind of just self-censor when I'm swearing
Yeah.
in a lot of situations.
It's like the tone that you say it
Yeah,
to, right?
it's the
And
tone, it's the motions and
the
things.
cadence and the timing,
Yeah,
framing.
yeah. It just
Yeah.
it really depends, and that's one of the
Mhm.
things. And yeah, like I said, going back to what you mentioned, of what I've learned from that is you can pick up a lot of those social communicative skills by looking at that and being like, what are you feeling in this moment? How are you portraying it?
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in making necessary changes for yourself?
Honestly, the biggest challenge is recognizing when I'm in these spirals, when I'm in these
Mhm.
negative mindsets. I have such a struggle in pulling myself back from them because I don't always recognize that my brain is spiraling in these negative waves. Like, even like, honestly, an example from this morning is I was on the phone with my girlfriend because she's out visiting my mom for the time being, and I just wasn't feeling very good. I was in a low place mentally, and she was like, "Okay, so like, are you coming out tonight?" I was like, "Yes, I'm just trying to figure out the schedule." Like, I snapped at her, and I look back on that, and I was like, I wasn't mad with her. I was just frustrated and in that low place, and I need to work on and that's, again, it's one of the struggles that I'm slowly taking these steps towards, of recognizing I'm in a bad spot. I need to not be here to interact with people in healthy manners. I don't want to push people away, and I don't want to isolate myself in these negative thoughts. And that's been the biggest roadblock and the biggest struggle is learning to recognize this, like coming to go, I was wrong here, or even more importantly, recognizing it in the moment where those emotions are laying.
It's finding that balance, right? Of okay, you need to be able to reach out to people and tell them that like you're not okay, but at the same time, you run the risk of you could potentially say things that you don't mean, that you need to deal with yourself. And so there's different ways of going about it yourself, of maybe going to the gym first, maybe getting some good sleep, maybe doing some art first,
Taking a
and
moment to just,
yeah, reflect and breathe. And then you can let somebody in, or maybe you do the reverse. And it's all about recognizing what's really happening inside and understanding yourself every day, because we're constantly changing and you're constantly being molded into a person that either we like or we don't like, right? And it's the actions that we do take, and
yeah.
it's a constant battle.
Oh, massive, massive, and just ongoing, no matter what you're doing, what you're trying to do. It is just that,
Yeah.
again, it's every little step. It is tiny little, it can be a half step, baby step, doesn't matter what it is. It's just slowly getting to reshaping. It's like working with clay on a wheel. You're slowly shaping up what you want everything to become. It's not, you can't just do it immediately. It is, you're taking a hunk, you are wetting it, you are molding it, you are taking some pieces off, and you are building up what you want, what you are envisioning.
Yeah. It's going to be messy
Oh
at
yeah.
times,
Oh yeah.
right? And a lot of the things will be out of your control at times, but okay, what can you do?
Yeah.
Right? Because we tend to obsess on the things that are out of our control, where this event happened and I had no say in it. And maybe it did for a while, but and maybe it was my idea for a bit, but now it's out there and I don't know what to do. But okay, what about your relationship with your parents? Okay, is that being taken care of? Or what about your health? And maybe this project didn't go as well, went awry, but okay, you'll come back to it in a bit. And
Yeah.
it's finding these levels of confidence. And you had said self-investing, right? And
Yeah.
there's different selves within us.
Yeah.
And
And
there's,
different ways to invest in yourself.
yeah,
Maybe that investment is, I'm just going to sleep in. Or maybe that self-investment is, okay, I'm going to spend a couple of hours just gaming and just, or reading a book or drawing, anything like that. Like the other night, one of the things I did for my own self-investment was I just sat down and I was like, okay, I'm just going to paint some miniatures. And I spent like 2-3 hours just doing that one evening before bed.
And it's recognizing the patterns of, okay, before this activity happens, right? How am I feeling? And during it, then after, is it something that I want to keep happening?
Is it worthwhile?
Is it worthwhile? And you know that yourself. And sometimes we can't do it alone, right?
Yeah.
And as you said, that we have to reach out to maybe get some professional help and get some people in. Granted, we don't hurt them, and instead of, we actually want to change and we actually value them as a person.
Yeah.
And it's different for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's finding those people that you can trust with that.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for coming on the long-term podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
I really loved this. This was awesome.
I appreciate the honesty, man. And it's always a good feeling to know that I'm not alone in my struggles. And while your life is completely different from mine,
no, we live totally different lives.
I can still connect, even if like I have no idea as to what it's like to be you, right? I can, like, it's all very similar. I know the feelings of like doubt and guilt and just like the passions that you have, and it's
the human experience. It is
the human condition, man. Yeah. And I appreciate you, man. Yeah. Thank you so much. And as always, to everyone listening and watching, there is a place for you in this chaotic world. Never lose hope, strengthen your faith, and keep it long term. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I have much to add to that. I think that's just the perfect way.
Dorian Oliver-Lyons, everyone.
Thank you so much there.